In the quiet study, a voice spoke out. Your betrothal to Grand Duchess Valdrova has been decided. The man lowered his voice with a heavy implication. I believe you understand what this means. He emphasized the name of his own son, Ferda Risnova. For him right now, being engaged to a Grand Duchess was practically a death sentence for a noble, and it was obvious there were only two choices: reject the engagement and be cast out of the family. If he didn't want that, there was the second choice: accept it and be torn to pieces. But me, I had always wanted to be a part of this family. The sound of gasping breaths and the heavy footsteps of Ferda Risnova echoed all along the path. He was merely the sickly third son of a knight family born to a concubine. Whispers and gossip always surrounded Ferda Risnova. Looks like the third young master is training again today. Another person showed open disdain. What's the use of training? He's been stuck at the exact same spot for all these years. It's pathetic how hard he tries even without an ounce of talent. Even though life was extremely difficult and no one stood by my side, I still endured it. I used to think that if I just kept trying and put in my absolute best. Iremin Risnova looked down from the office through the glass window and smiled. Ferda Risnova, despite being exhausted when he saw him, always reminded himself to keep pushing, so that one day he would finally be recognized. On a fine day, Hurin Risnova stood right in front of Ferda Risnova and said, Ferda, I heard a pretty interesting rumor recently. Have you really started training to become a knight? Looks like you're misunderstanding something. He genuinely gave him a thorough beating. You never had the right to begin with. Hurin Risnova used words even harsher than anything else. With those filthy blue eyes of yours. In the training courtyard, Ferda Risnova would sometimes catch the gaze of Iremin Risnova, but the very next second, the man would coldly turn away without the slightest hesitation. This left a wound far too deep for him. I used to want to be recognized as part of the family, but their gazes had long since stopped looking at me. Until the day Iremin Risnova brought up the engagement, he bluntly declared, You will leave the family. His expression was so cold that the boy didn't even matter anymore. Fine. Very soon after, Ferda Risnova, along with his meager luggage, was chased out of the mansion. Before leaving, Iremin Risnova made one final declaration. From now on, you are no longer a Risnova. Ferda Risnova walked away from the main gates carrying a gloomy mood and a haunting obsession. He looked down at his own rough, trembling hands and thought, even though he knew how hard I tried. Bitterness was etched deep into the eyes of Ferda Risnova. I will never forgive him. He had turned all that love into hatred. I'm going to make him regret throwing me away. This was the moment that marked a brand new milestone. On that day, I became a mage. But things couldn't possibly be as easy as Ferda Risnova thought. Suddenly, the sound of breaking objects rang out. Ferda Risnova looked at the person leaning against the wall. You want to become a mage at this age? He knew the reason deep down. Waking up as a mage at 18 was already way too late compared to other students. The guys inside the academy endlessly mocked Ferda Risnova. What could you possibly understand with that rock for a brain? It must take you decades just to grasp the basic principles. But in truth, he had once heard a saying, every mage uses their inner power as their driving force. Mana flared up around Ferda Risnova. It didn't matter even if I didn't understand anything. The three bullies shrank back in fear. That source of magical power, a red magic circle appeared. In his eyes, the light of kindness had vanished, because my magic was fueled by hatred and the will for revenge. Immediately after, the orb in Ferda Risnova's hand was unleashed and detonated. He walked away, leaving the pathetic wretches behind him. The more hatred I held, the stronger I became, accumulating hatred to reach the realm of the Sixth Circle Great Archmage. The place I returned to was my home, the Risnova family. I made the servants who had once insulted me slaughter one another. I made the eldest and second sons hate each other, and destroyed them both at the same time. And finally, the father with whom I had the deepest grudge. Just kill me. His tears fell alongside his upturned, bulging eyes. Just kill me already. However, Ferda Risnova couldn't bring himself to forgive him so easily. Father, take a good look. Isn't this the proud Risnova family that you built? Witnessing hell unfold right before his eyes, he completely collapsed. Just like that, everything associated with the Risnova family was wiped out. Ferda Risnova cast his gaze outside the window. The noisy night had completely come to an end, but a burning craving still lingered in his eyes. Still not enough. The hatred and anger inside me have never subsided. It was spreading across the entire continent. In response, countless powerhouses drew their swords. Hundreds of criticisms were hurled at Ferda Risnova. Isn't massacring an entire family on a whim enough for you? You slaughter countless lives, yet still dare to spew such sophistry. Ferda, sinner of the entire continent, I will judge you myself. Even when facing dozens of powerful figures, I survived once again and reached the highest realm a human could touch, the eighth circle. I had become a great archmage. They still harbored resentment toward me. They would seek revenge at any moment just like I had done. Therefore, I had to become even stronger, strong enough to crush anyone. Demigod, the realm of a demigod. The ninth circle. I needed overwhelming power. Ferda Resnova flipped through the pages of a book and muttered to himself. The ultimate ingredient needed to reach the ninth circle is. He viciously drove the tip of his dagger into Valdrova's portrait. Is this a cruel joke of fate? The core ingredient to advance to a demigod belongs to a blood dragon. Grand Duchess Valdrova, I need her heart. And that fateful night arrived. Destiny was truly too cruel. Heavy, thick drops of blood fell to the ground. Valdrova spoke with difficulty, suffering from severe injuries. To think that the one who was supposed to be my fiancé, she emphasized every single word as she faced Ferda Resnova. My own fiancé has come to kill me. Suddenly he coughed a few times, and blood spilled from his mouth. He hardly looked human anymore. You'd better just die by my hand, Tyrant Valdrova. Her breathing sounded like a sigh. I know I'm called a tyrant, but why? I've never even shown my face once. Even before you were born, I've always been here, staying far away from the human world. What kind of hatred do you hold to be filled with such murderous intent? These words touched an old wound he didn't want to mention. You didn't do anything. Ferda Resnova instinctively shifted all the blame onto Valdrova. You are the cause of my misery. Because of your meaningless greed in looking for a fiancé, you got me chased out of my own family. She was quite surprised by that blameworthiness logic. That's my fault, Ferda Resnova blindly shouted. That's right. The greed of a vicious dragon wanting a human partner, that greed pushed me into tragedy. Do you understand? Hearing this, Valdrova tremblingly stepped closer to him. Is that so? Ferda Resnova gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with caution. What just happened? That doubt was instantly brushed aside, but it didn't matter anymore anyway. Thanks to you, I've bought enough time to gather my mana. As long as I unleash this final blow. Unexpectedly, Valdrova's voice completely cut him off. Now I understand. She raised her massive claws toward Ferda Resnova. He quickly opened a magic circle like a shield. And then the tragedy happened, accompanied by Valdrova's piercing scream. Ferda Resnova stood in a daze, as dark red fluid dripped onto his cheek. She was using her claws to carve a path right through her own chest. For a moment he couldn't comprehend it. She was hurting herself. Why? Valdrova's raspy voice rang out. You said your magic needed a dragon's heart, didn't you? A thought flashed through Ferda Resnova's mind. She was trying to destroy the heart. He couldn't help but roar to stop her. Stop right now. Ferda Resnova was genuinely panicked. That heart is my only chance to reach the ninth circle. He used magic to halt Valdrova's action. I won't let you destroy it. The magical orb aimed straight at the top of her head, and then it exploded along with Ferda Resnova's scolding. You dragon. Injured, Valdrova spat out another mouthful of blood, but this failed to stop her claws from driving deeper into her chest. No, Ferda Resnova panicked as she collapsed. You crazy woman, the heart, what about the heart? For a split second, he paused as a flash of gold struck his eyes. There lay the massive heart completely intact. A voice echoed, take it. Ferda Resnova stood frozen for a moment with countless questions. Why? He instinctively spoke out in protest. I don't understand, Valdrova. Why go this far? If this was a fight to the death, you were more than capable of handling someone like me. She tremblingly handed her heart over to him. I know, it's just because you became miserable because of me. Ferda Resnova's vision blurred right after. What? Valdrova's story slowly unfolded. For a very long time, I've always hated myself. I hated the cruel blood flowing through these veins, the urge to go mad and destroy everything for no reason. I couldn't stop it myself. Her eyes slowly opened, as streams of tears fell down. The light of magic flared, pulling back to a distant time. My existence brings terror to everyone, and that if I died, everything would be resolved, but I still wish to be happy while alive. This stupid dream of mine caused too much trouble. Right now, Valdrova's eyelids grew heavy and slowly closed. She expressed her innermost feelings. Since everyone became miserable because of me, I hope that at least you will find happiness through me. That's the last thing I can do for you. Following these words, Valdrova seemed unable to move anymore. Ferda Resnova opened his eyes wide in disbelief at what had just happened. He instinctively gripped his own chest. What is this feeling? For a brief moment, Ferda Resnova's face distorted. Why is my heart so uneasy? He squeezed his eyes shut, tormenting himself. Valdrova, even until the very end, you're still trying to mess with me. I can't let her words sway me. Think about why you came here. The ninth circle is right in front of your eyes, the essence of a dragon that has lived for millennia. If I absorb this, it's like the final drop that overflows a full cup. I will surpass human limits and be reborn as a demigod. The terrifying power coursed through his veins. Suddenly, the surroundings around Ferda Risnova grew strangely quiet. Why on earth did he fall into pitch-black space? What's going on? I clearly obtained the dragon's heart, but why does it feel like I'm sinking into a bottomless swamp? Is this a side effect of swallowing the dragon's heart? While floating within that world, Ferda Risnova sensed something. Wait! Is this massive wave of emotion Valdrova's? Valdrova's tears fell, carrying a powerful surge of mana. It forced Ferda Risnova, the one who absorbed the dragon's heart, to feel the exact same thing. His entire body went limp as he collapsed right onto the ground. Ferda Risnova's pupils froze and widened. I finally saw it, a deep, ancient despair that my own could never match. Yet it was such a beautiful solitude, desperately trying to embrace the entire world until the very last second. My anger and hatred which ended that life became so small and trivial. What on earth have I done? Ferda Risnova stood before his younger self and asked, what on earth is it that I've always craved? To become a great archmage? For revenge? Or to ascend to a demigod? After his mind drifted in confusion, he recalled his original purpose. No, I just wanted an ordinary family. Ever since he was very young, Ferda Risnova had always longed for that, and to live a peaceful life. He looked at his innocent smile from back then, and then saw the lonely figure of the young woman by the windowsill. Valdrova, do you share that same wish as me? Right then and there, Ferda Risnova truly came to terms with everything. It all became meaningless. She died by my hand. What meaning is left in anything now? Tears of guilt poured out of him like that. The only spell a ninth circle mage could cast, just as wished, his ninth circle opened. But it meant nothing at all. Suddenly a voice called out beside his ear. Ferda. Ferda Risnova opened his eyes and startled, asking, where is this? Iremen Risnova frowned, wearing an annoyed expression. Ferda, you brat, I'm talking to you and you dare to zone out. He recoiled at the person sitting before him. Iremen Risnova. He was bound to become a cripple and lose his life. Could it be that this day was repeating exactly what was carved into Ferda Risnova's memories? Your betrothal to Grand Duchess Valdrova has been decided. I believe you understand what this means, right? If you refuse the engagement, the family will. Ferda Risnova smiled, taking steps right up in front of him. I've really come back. This time I won't run away. Then he clearly patted his chest and declared, I understand. Ferda Risnova seriously affirmed regarding the betrothal to Grand Duchess Valdrova. I will officially accept it. News of Ferda Risnova accepting the engagement spread everywhere. That bastard agreed to marry Grand Duchess Valdrova? This person was none other than the second young master, Hurin Risnova. He relentlessly questioned the servant. Did I hear that wrong? He might cling to life pathetically, but he's not the type to walk into certain death without fear. So what is that bastard doing right now? The servant bowed respectfully. He hasn't departed yet, but he dismissed the servants and locked himself in his room. Hurin Risnova smiled maliciously, rubbing his chin as if plotting something. Then there's still time for some brotherly bonding. Should we go check out what his face looks like right now? A moment later, a knock echoed from outside into the room. Hurin Risnova cheerfully flung the door open, ignoring Ferda Risnova's permission. Ferda, you punk, why haven't you left yet? What are you still doing here? Suddenly, his smile vanished at the sight before him. Right now, the boy was dressing himself. This guy. I honestly thought he'd cry and throw a tantrum because he didn't want to go, yet he's preparing by himself. Ferda Risnova coldly turned to remind him. Is it reasonable to barge in without knocking, brother? If you're wondering about the servants, I ordered them to step down. Hurin Risnova looked in disbelief, pointing at his face. You're changing your own clothes? Brushing those words aside, Ferda Risnova added, from now on I won't have servants waiting on me, so I might as well get used to it gradually. Doubt arose in his heart, this Ferda. Is he really the Ferda I know? Even so, Hurin Risnova still let out a taunt. I heard your engagement is finalized. Do you understand what that means? Ferda Risnova remained nonchalant. Yes, it's an order of banishment from the family, right? Hurin Risnova froze, his smile distorting. Huh, no, I mean that engagement is going to chew you up. Do you know why Grand Duchess Valdrova's fiancé position has been vacant for so long? He lowered his head and softly affirmed. I know very well, actually. Previously, Valdrova's first fiancé was the third prince of the empire, someone perfect with superhuman intellect, outstanding appearance, and beloved by the people, the one who gave up the future imperial throne in exchange for the title of the evil dragon's fiancé. One day, after he set off for the engagement, the outcome wasn't very good, because he got beaten to a pulp. Hurin Risnova pointed right at Ferda Risnova's face. And yet you think you can succeed with an engagement that even the third prince couldn't handle. He waved his hand in contempt. Then again, who would stop a fool voluntarily offering himself to be eaten by a dragon? Don't even think about defying family orders and running away. If you do that, it won't even reach Valdrova. I'll cut off your head myself. Facing a loudmouth like Hurin Risnova, Ferda Risnova was easy to deal with. Brother, you'd better worry about controlling yourself. Everyone knows that lustful look in your eyes every time you look at your sister-in-law. He was exposed, his face turning bright red. What? Hurin Risnova even wanted to spar with him. You little brat. However, Ferda Risnova only acted indifferent. Even if you want to hit your younger brother, please exercise some restraint. Unlike when we were kids, it's going to be a real hassle if my face gets scratched now. The road to the dragon's jaw is still long, so I must be on my way. Soon after, the luggage and carriage were already waiting outside. The butler couldn't help but breathe heavily, overwhelmed with emotion. He didn't forget to send his farewells to Ferda Risnova. It has been an honor serving you all this time, young master. But he replied with a disgusted look. Such hypocritical words. If you really felt that way, you wouldn't have tampered with my food in the past. Ever since I was a child, I always thought I was just sickly. It wasn't until later that I realized even the servants were never on my side. Thinking back on those days, that bastard was so utterly revolting that I just wanted to kill him outright. But having lived another life, Ferda Risnova wouldn't do that. You've worked hard all this time. He was merely intimidating him with a few words, taking care of someone like me for so long. For a fleeting moment, the butler's tears turned inward. What? Before leaving, Ferda Risnova didn't forget to impart. Take good care of the Risnova family when I'm gone. Sitting inside the carriage, he still felt quite troubled. Perhaps it's because I've already had my revenge. My heart feels completely at peace right now. Ferda Risnova's gaze was fixed solely on the dazzling light of the summer midday. Anger, the craving for revenge. I don't feel any of those things anymore. He reminisced about his past self. The magic I used to wield was just like an addictive drug. At first, it was deeply intoxicating. But as my mana threshold kept rising, it became impossible to control. An addictive drug. When I was drowning in that madness, everything felt so exhilarating and thrilling, until she herself offered her heart to Ferda Risnova. Thinking of this, his eyes were filled entirely with regret. Ferda Risnova leaned back against the seat and muttered to himself, "But I don't want to become like that anymore. This peace I haven't tasted in so long isn't half bad. Does this mean I'll never awaken to become a mage again?" Right at that moment, the coachman spoke up. "Reporting to the young master, we have arrived." A sign was planted right in front of the path. Beyond this marker lies the Grand Duke's territory. Unauthorized entry is strictly prohibited under any circumstances. Ferda Risnova sat outside waiting amidst the sound of cicadas. He watched the carriage and cursed under his breath. That damned driver, the moment I mentioned a dragon might appear, he got so scared he bolted without looking back. Ferda Risnova propped his chin up and pondered for a long while. On the bright side, no one is trailing me now, but if some wild beast jumps out, if I want to survive, I really should start learning magic again. Just a casual study, maybe up to the 4th circle, should be fine, right? Suddenly, he noticed some rustling nearby. Emerging from the bushes was an unusual girl. She had arrived. Luri lifted the hem of her dress slightly to bow. "Greetings. I am Luri, an attendant to Grand Duke Valdrova." Before entering, she needed to confirm. "Are you Lord Ferda Risnova?" He nodded. "That's right, it's me." Luri pointed toward the trail. "I will escort you to the castle, please this way. There is nothing the Empire cannot conquer." The people of the Arkan Empire were enchanted by its power, but in reality, that power wasn't nearly as flawless. The eastern part of the continent was known as the Land of Demons. Teeming with monsters, it was a disaster humanity never dared dream of conquering. Yet the one who halted the advance of those monsters and dominated the front lines was none other than the blood dragon Valdrova. Ferda Risnova carried his luggage and looked around. Even though she built the sole defense line in the Land of Demons, people still call her a wicked dragon. Considering all she has achieved, her reputation is absurdly slandered. They didn't hesitate to slander her, claiming she was secretly breeding an army of monsters. But standing right in front of a real dragon, they wouldn't dare utter a single peep. Suddenly, something flashed past Ferda Risnova, narrowly missing him. Luri turned her head and reassured him. "There's nothing to worry about. As long as you walk beside me, those creatures won't dare recklessly attack." He was quite surprised by this overbearing dominance. "Thank you." Ferda abruptly started a conversation. "How much further do we have to walk?" She quickly replied. "It will take about 2 hours." This troubled him quite a bit. "Then how did you get to me?" Luri's expression remained gloomy. If I went alone, flying would only take 10 seconds. Hearing this, Ferda didn't ask any further. As expected, she wasn't an ordinary maid. Luri was a retainer carrying the blood of a dragon, a half-dragon. Endowed with innate physical strength and magic, she even concealed her horns and tail. She was a high-ranking half-dragon, in a completely different league from ordinary half-dragons. The trembling wooden cane drove itself into the ground. Ferda trudged along with his luggage until he was parched. "Why don't we just fly to the lair this time?" she carefully detailed. "If we do that, I would have to carry you in my arms. Is that what you want, sir?" Ferda shook his head in explanation. "You don't need to worry about me. If it's flying, I can still endure it." Luri let her disgust show plainly on her face. "No, it's simply that I don't want to." Hearing this, Ferda was left speechless for a few seconds. He forced a smile and continued dragging his weary body. If she didn't want to, there was nothing he could do. "Well, since we've walked such a long way, how about we take a short break?" Unexpectedly, Luri refused ruthlessly. "Let's keep moving. My master is waiting." He didn't know what to do. He was very likely suffering from low blood sugar. Looking at the setting sun, Ferda understood the hardships of men. Wooing a wife isn't easy at all. After a long while, Luri finally made it back to the dragon's cage. She knocked on the door and made an announcement. "Master, your fiancé has arrived." Ferda looked at his own trembling hands. "Right now I can sense something beyond this door. Just how intense is the pressure radiating from a dragon's aura?" Seeing him follow right behind, Luri raised a hand to stop him. "I will relay my master's message. Don't recklessly step inside. You will hear her words through me." However, that wasn't what Ferda wanted. "Can I speak to her directly?" She shot him a menacing, murderous glare. "Do you really think someone like you has the qualifications to stand before her?" Understanding human psychology, he didn't push further. "All right, then go ahead." A moment later, Luri came out with a radiant expression. "I shall convey the message of Grand Duke Valdrova to you who have come to propose to me according to the directives of the Arkan Empire. I commend you for having the nerve to come here despite knowing about my atrocities. However, I have no intention of being forced into an engagement. Return to whence you came." Ferda was somewhat disappointed. "I've traveled this far as her fiancé, and yet she's chasing me away. If I were still my old self, I would have agreed immediately. But the me of today is different." Ferda bowed politely. "This union began as a command, but I stand here of my own free will." His next words left Luri utterly astonished. "I have no intention of going back. I wish to proceed with the engagement." She eyed him with extreme guardedness. "Could you pass along the message?" After all, that was clearly Luri's job. A little while later, she returned with a cloth pouch filled with gold. Luri relayed Valdrova's words. "I appreciate the willpower that brought you here of your own accord. Since returning would place you in a difficult situation, I will bestow wealth upon you. Therefore, leave this place and build a new home for yourself." Ferda remained steadfast in his choice. "I care nothing for power or wealth." He reached out a hand forward and said softly, "I only care about marrying you." Luri watched him pull his stunt from afar, feeling a chill down her spine. She took a deep breath, clenching her hands into fists, and then threw a direct punch straight into the wall behind her. Luri dropped all pretense and directly chased him off. "I won't waste any more breath. Get out of here immediately." Ferda responded coldly. "That sounds a bit too concise for a message from a Grand Duke." Luri tightly furrowed her brow and declared, "No, I am speaking of my own volition as my master's attendant." Her claws gradually began to emerge right after. "If you refuse to leave." The dragon's horns also appeared. Luri had returned to the true appearance of a high-ranking half-dragon. Ferda tried to shield himself with his hands against the overwhelming pressure she emitted. "Dragon's might." Luri's voice echoed resonantly. "I know all too well what kind of creatures you mortals are. A bunch of trash who don't respect Lord Valdrova in the slightest, with nothing but power and ambition in your heads." Ferda suddenly realized something. So that's why the third prince met his demise. She confirmed it without a shred of concealment. That's right. His head was filled solely with thoughts of establishing a marital alliance and using Lord Valdrova for his own personal gains. I don't understand how he could have believed that wouldn't be found out. He was truly shameless. Hearing that, he felt a hint of sympathy. He really was too arrogant. However, those words didn't earn him any sympathy from Luri. "In my eyes, you're no different at all. How dare you deceive my master? Do you want to die just like the third prince?" To her surprise, even though Ferda had been knocked flat on his back, he still wore a confident smile. His subsequent words caught Luri even more off guard. "I, Ferda, swear right here without a shred of a lie. I didn't come here because anyone forced me, nor did I come here to seek any petty gains." Just like how in the final moments, she handed her heart over to someone as selfish as me. "This time I will become her ally. I have come here as the man who will become Valdrova's husband. Ferda showed no fear toward the pressure Luri exerted. Because we are destined to become husband and wife. Report back to her that from now on, we should speak directly to one another instead of going through an attendant. She couldn't hold back the anger consuming her. You insolent little brat, how dare you utter such wild words? Suddenly, Luri stopped just before her claws touched his neck. She quickly widened the distance and put on a polite facade. Please excuse my brief absence. Ferda scratched his head in agreement. Granted. Shortly after, she went inside the room. To relay his words, I have come here as the man who will become Valdrova's husband. Having said that, Luri immediately dropped to her knees. That is what he said, master. Valdrova patiently listened to the rest. The greatest among the 12 rulers, my mistress, the embodiment of absolute power. She transformed into her human form. Is that really so? I never expected him to go that far. Now I'm actually curious about what kind of person he is. She was none other than the blood dragon Grand Duke Valdrova. Unable to hide her curiosity, she asked, when you met him, what did he look like? Luri recalled the image of him walking along the trail. A completely frail human. He looked as if just walking to this castle alone would be enough to cost him his life. She suddenly paused for a beat. And he was hideously ugly. Please let me deal with him right now. Valdrova spoke up in a gentle reminder. Luri. Startled, she checked herself. I apologize. Actually, his face was quite handsome. Features like that would surely make many women weep. She shook her head. No, that wasn't what I just asked, was it? Hearing this, Luri couldn't brush it off anymore. She finally sighed and told the truth. He is very different. I am a half-dragon. Intimidating mortals is a breeze for me. But that man, he didn't show a shred of fear when I released my aura. Therefore, I believe he will be able to look you straight in the eye. Master. No sooner had those words left her lips than Valdrova's laughter rang out. Luri's eyes narrowed as she looked ahead. How fortunate. A human who can withstand my gaze. Perhaps I'll be able to face him normally. Hearing this, Luri stammered in disbelief. Normally, did you say? Yet she insisted firmly. That's right, normally. A moment later, Luri came back outside to relay the message to Ferda. The master has decided to proceed with the engagement. She still wouldn't allow him inside. I will lead you to the guest room, please this way. The room inside was quite intricately decorated. It's much better maintained than I thought. Ferda looked around and marveled. How neat. Who manages this place? Luri briefly replied. I do. He casually wondered. Isn't anyone else here besides you? She felt a bit annoyed. I am the master's only attendant, guest. Hearing this form of address, Ferda became curious. Guest, not fiancé. Luri sighed and reminded him. You haven't even held the wedding ceremony yet, have you? Until then, you are simply guest number 1. And she made no secret of one thing. I hate humans. Seeing her attitude, he thought to himself, she's just like a guard dog. Ferda quickly cut to the chase, bypassing all the meaningless hierarchy. So when is the engagement ceremony? Luri answered on her behalf. The ceremony will be held in a month. The master, you and I. Well, guest, it will be held quietly inside the dragon's lair. Ferda smiled faintly with satisfaction. I see. He looked as though he wanted to prepare for something. Then a month should be enough. That gaze didn't make Luri feel uneasy. A moment later, she dropped that expression and snapped irritably. Who said the engagement would be handed to you on a silver platter? This is also the deadline for you to prove your own worth. Ferda tilted his head in confusion. Deadline, Luri proudly declared. The life partner of a grand existence must possess a status worthy of that role. From now on, you have 1 month. Please prove that you are qualified to be her fiancé. He began to feel exhausted. Even getting married isn't easy at all. Suddenly, Ferda remembered a question. Was that your master's wish? Naturally, Luri puffed out her chest. No, that's my opinion. He felt rather helpless at her protectiveness. An attendant decides such things on her own. Luri began a lengthy lecture. The master is soft-hearted. The master might let this slide, but I cannot do that. Prove that even with that frail body of yours, you still possess potential. If you can't even do this, then even if you are called a fiancé, you will never be recognized as the Grand Duke's husband. Hearing this, Ferda pondered for a moment. He cast his gaze down toward Luri. His fiancée had kept such a good person by her side. Even though she hated him, she still put her master first and pointed out exactly what was required of a husband. Such a loyal person. Why was she nowhere to be seen in the final moments? Thinking of this, Ferda temporarily pushed the past aside. All right, let's assume I'll show you my capabilities. To what extent do I need to reach? Do I need to become the emperor of the empire? Luri seriously reaffirmed. No, it is enough that other grand existences cannot look down upon you, a condition few could pull off. You make it sound easy. You're asking me to display enough potential to surpass even an emperor. But to marry Valdrova, he accepted all these conditions. Fine, I understand. On the contrary, this baffled Luri. Why are you so relaxed? Do dragons look that easygoing to you, or are you just an idiot? Ferda patiently explained. Neither. Don't worry, within a month I'll show you enough competence to convince you. Standing before such a unique man, she thought to herself, this human. Where does he get that kind of confidence? And just like that, night gradually fell, with the moonlight illuminating the entire region. Ferda was alone in his room with a jumble of thoughts. Proving my potential. True, right now I don't have any abilities at all. However, mages are precious on this continent, and among them I happen to have experience reaching the 9th circle. That's an experience only I possess. If the sensations from before are still lingering, this is entirely possible. For a mage, the first circle is the most important. It's the crossroad that determines the nature of a person's mana circuits. The blue magic circle is created through calm meditation. Although slow, it is stable, which is why it's the path most mages choose. On the other hand, the red magic circle is born from intense emotions, allowing one to become strong very quickly, but at the cost of being consumed by those emotions and easily turning into a madman. In the past, I became a grand archmage purely through hatred. If I walk the path I once walked, I will grow even stronger, even faster. However, I am a different person now. Because of that, making a choice requires careful consideration. This time I will choose a different path, a steady way so that I won't waver anymore. Time just kept flowing like that. A week had already passed. In the place where Ferda lived, he still diligently practiced magic through meditation. At first, Ferda could only gather a small ball of energy in the palm of his hand. This consumed quite a bit of his energy, failed again. The time required to create a blue magic circle is usually at least 3 years. It really takes a lot of time. But with the senses from before my regression, I thought I'd manage it quickly. It definitely feels different compared to the red circle. Only 3 weeks left. At this rate. Outside, Luri brought his midday meal to him. Are you still training? Ferda didn't hide it and confirmed. That's right. She uttered a heartbreaking remark, and yet it seems like nothing has changed at all. Even so, his willpower didn't waver. If I persevere, it'll succeed. He said that on the outside, but Ferda knew clearly. But it's true I haven't made any progress at all. I need a different approach. Suddenly a tremor struck, startling him slightly. Ferda cast his gaze outside the window. What is this tremor? Luri calmly replied. The master is currently out subjugating monsters. This remark caught Ferda's attention somewhat. Monster subjugation? She dropped another piece of news. She is personally wiping out the monsters crawling out from the land of evil at the far eastern edge. This unconsciously made him unable to help pausing for a beat. Valdrova. So Ferda came up with an idea and made a proposal. I want to witness that battle with my own eyes. Even so, Luri intended to stop him. You'd better not go. He wondered why. A reason was given by her. Because the human mind cannot possibly handle that, unless you want to shamefully wet your pants right before the engagement ceremony. You'd better not watch it. Facing this threat, Ferda firmly decided, no, this is the responsibility of someone who is going to become her partner. I want to witness that battle with my own eyes. A streak of blue light flashed across the clear sky. It turned out Luri had carried Ferda flying to this area. She dropped him onto the ground and announced, we've arrived. Flying at high speed probably exceeded Ferda's endurance. The speed is truly incredible, almost on par with teleportation. I feel so nauseous. Seeing him look at her with a gloomy gaze, Luri quickly clarified. I'm not the thing you need to be looking at. She reminded him of one more thing. Get up and look ahead. Following those words, he also turned his eyes toward the opposite direction. Below the edge of the cliff was an unpleasantly thick source of mana. Ferda's face sank, carrying anxiety. Striking his eyes was the chaotic scene of beasts. Is that where Valdrova is fighting? A strange golden light radiated from the central area of the battle. Right after that, flames erupted powerfully from the center. The other monsters seemed to all want to confront Valdrova. She used her claws to grab hold of their bodies. Valdrova didn't hesitate to tear their bodies in half, and she even gathered an orb inside her throat, then directly activated her dragon breath to sweep across everywhere. Luri looked at this scene as if she were already too used to it. Right after that was a thunderous roar emitted by Valdrova. She emitted a powerful high-frequency sound. It reached Ferda's ears, leaving him completely dizzy. Ferda couldn't take it and collapsed to his knees on the ground. As expected, it possesses such immense power. Dragon's roar. Luri's voice rang out once again. Do you understand now how ridiculous it is for a human to dare partner up with a dragon? This is the true face of the person who's going to become your partner. Luri noticed Ferda's trembling hands. In her heart, she began to reassess him. He's trembling as expected. That's why I warned him beforehand. Luri continued to add. Residing within the blood of a blood dragon is what humans call the nature of an evil dragon. A life of destruction, a life nurtured by savage slaughter instincts. Saying that, she seriously turned to Ferda. It's an innate nature. No matter what his human personality is like, your fragile back is going to break every single day. Determination alone isn't enough. Do you understand what it means to be a dragon's partner now? In her eyes, there was only one fact. Humans and dragons can never truly become one. With this much, even the master should realize it soon enough, that her dream of staying by a human's side won't lead to any result. Ferda took a deep breath, the corners of his mouth curving slightly. Contrary to Luri's thoughts, he looked at it with an expression of immense admiration. Truly amazing, she couldn't believe it. Is he smiling? Is he admiring it instead of being terrified, even after witnessing all of this? What? Because of this action, Luri felt disgusted again. A crazy blood maniac. After the performance just then, Ferda was brought back to the mansion by her. He lay sprawled on the bed with a dirt-smudged face. I mentally prepared myself, but my whole body is still wrecked. Not just the dragon's aura, but the dragon's roar too. Luri hated him, yet was still the one who brought Ferda back. Pushing everything aside, he thought to himself. It's a miracle that at least my mind is still intact. At this rate, I'm still a long way from opening a circle. I'm going to waste a whole day. Ferda asked himself once again. Why on earth did I want to watch that battle in the first place? He quickly sat up and reminded himself. If he had to reflect on what he saw today, for a fleeting moment, a chill ran down Ferda's spine. Remembering Valdrova, he couldn't help being shaken. It's truly no less than terrifying, but it makes me unable to look away. Hiding her true nature at the far eastern edge of the continent, and all these actions of exterminating monsters. Separating herself from crowded places. It's all purely to protect what she loves, walking the path of a noble knight, voluntarily choosing the thorny road. In Ferda's heart right now there was only one thought. Truly amazing. He took a deep breath and imagined the future if he and her, but suddenly the sensation in the middle of his chest made him pause. Wait, this feeling is the red circle. This isn't the kind of mana I need. I can't repeat what happened in the past right now. I have to resist it. And then a drop of blood fell. The image of Valdrova wearing red armor surfaced in his mind. What is this, Valdrova? The more he recalled her battle, the clearer his mana circuits became. An emotion that was neither anger nor revenge. Ferda closed his eyes, halfway to focus on understanding himself. What is this emotion called? Strange, it's so vague it feels like it could vanish at any moment if I don't seize it right now. Focus on this emotion, compress it and spin it really fast. A strong beam of light was created in the palm of his hand, to form a single circle, and then the red circle magic truly formed. However, in the current situation, Ferda decided this time would be different. I won't let that future, the mistakes I made, repeat itself again. This news was quickly discovered by Luri. You actually unlocked your mana circuits in just one night. Even though he was exposed, he didn't seem too surprised. You noticed? Your eyes are no joke. She let out a brief sigh. You couldn't even stand steadily yesterday. How did you do it? Normally unlocking them in a single night is impossible. Ferda chewed on a few more pieces of meat. I could do it because I'm not an ordinary person. Luri was utterly baffled. Is that so? He didn't forget to ask. So how do you see it now? She looked over once and evaluated. All right, you've met the basic standard. Even so, Ferda knew he still had a long way to go. After finishing his meal, he had something he needed Luri's help with. Is there any place nearby for me to practice magic? Very quickly, wooden dummy puppets were set up. The sound of a broom sweeping lightly across the ground kicked up dust everywhere. Luri introduced the training area to Ferda. I've created a training ground per your request. He couldn't stop clapping in praise. As expected of Valdrova's one-of-a-kind retainer, she built a fully equipped training ground all by herself in just half a day, truly excellent. Before Ferda practiced, Luri had one question. However, I have a doubt. What you requested wasn't expensive magic tools, but just shooting targets. What on earth are you planning to train? He was truly taking basic steps. I want to practice controlling mana more effectively. If I can't control mana, I'm just wasting it in vain. This made her feel confused. Why would you think like that? Ferda quickly realized a problem. Isn't that true for dragons? Luri honestly shook her head. No, it sounds like you're saying you need to learn how to breathe. If other half-dragons heard that, they'd call it primitive. Ferda posed a counter-question. So my action looks primitive in your eyes too. She nodded as confirmation. I'm a half-dragon too. After these words, he didn't say anything further and thought to himself. How can those born with innate talent ever understand human effort? Seeing Ferda leave, Luri made an offer. Can I watch you train? Of course, he didn't refuse. If you want to watch a breathing exercise, Ferda chose to stop in the middle of the training ground. He closed his eyes halfway, adjusting his inherent breathing. The foundation of mana control is stability. That's the method of the blue magic circle. However, my circle is red. I have to stimulate my emotions while still controlling them. Only when I overcome that contradiction can power truly open a path. It once took a year to pull mana up from the fierce current, and took another year to condense it into a sphere, recreating the mana bullets that his past self had to shed blood, sweat, and effort to create. That theoretical part only applied to his past life. Now it only took 2 minutes. When seeing the small orb on the tip of Ferda's finger, Luri was a bit surprised. A mana orb without shedding a single drop of sweat. Did he successfully control mana on his very first practice session? Even right after that, he created 3 similar orbs. Ferda gently used his hand to guide them to spin in a circular pattern, then directly fired each orb at the prepared dummy puppet. Unleash it with maximum attack, mana bullets. Trying it for the very first time, Ferda was a bit excited. As expected, it didn't take my life. His extraordinary progress made Luri quite suspicious. She quickly brought everything back to Valdrova. That's my full report regarding Lord Ferda. She crossed her arms and nodded in approval. I see. Well done. Luri, did he awaken as a mage not long after arriving here? However, I'm not sure how astonishing that actually is either. You know the outside world better, so you must know. Luri, in your eyes, what does that man look like? Although she didn't like Ferda, Luri was very honest. Right from the first step, he was flawless without making a single mistake. That's precisely what makes him suspicious and dangerous. Valdrova was slightly puzzled by this. Why is that? She solemnly affirmed right away. Because it's impossible for a human to touch that realm without making a single mistake. The second half of the sentence was hidden deep in Luri's heart. He's definitely hiding something, like being a masochistic pervert, for instance. However, Valdrova looked at the story from another angle. Luri, for you to acknowledge a human to that extent. The more you talk about him, the more I find him truly astonishing. She looked somewhat deflated after hearing that. I hate to admit this, but it's true. The corners of her lips curved up slightly. Don't worry, didn't he say he came here with pure faith? I'll try placing my faith in him. Even so, Luri was quite worried. The master has been hurt by humans too much already. So now she's finally opening up. I must make sure that doesn't happen again. If only I could probe his true intentions. Suddenly her eyes widened as if discovering something. Luri made a proposal without rushing. Master, while we have the opportunity, what do you think about entrusting that matter to him? Valdrova hesitated slightly. You mean, what matter? Very soon after, Ferda was summoned in. Lord Ferda presents himself. At the meeting of the chairman of the Far Eastern Frontline Association, the attendees sat around a round table. To think the Grand Duke would summon us lords here. One of the men among them spoke up. While we don't know when the monsters will attack, who on earth are we supposed to meet right now? Hearing this, the person next to him continued. Haven't you heard the news yet? Word is the fiancé the Grand Duke recently chose is coming here. So public opinion began to surge. A fiancé? Don't tell me some fool actually thinks an engagement order with the Grand Duke means preparing for a real wedding. The bald man on the other side nodded in confirmation. That's right. I heard he's the 3rd young master of the Resnova family and barely grown up. In the room, sarcastic remarks immediately broke out. An 18-year-old brat acting like a king just because he has the Grand Duke backing him up. King of what? I even heard he's a good-for-nothing who can't even hold a sword. They even mocked Ferda Resnova's family. What? He comes from Resnova, the Empire's guardian knight family, yet he's even worse than a private soldier. Among them, Ulvera Concilis showed a dangerously chilling aura. Seeing how long he lasts won't even be worth our trouble. He even affirmed that this fiancé would soon be torn to pieces by the Grand Duke anyway. This person was Count Ulvera Concilis. The others chimed in with him. True, that's right. Right at this moment, an announcement came from outside the door. Lord Ferda Resnova presents himself. Today he appeared alongside Valdrova's confidant, Luri. It turned out this was her suggestion. Meet the lords. Do I really have to go right now? Luri used Valdrova's authority to demand. It's something you have to do sooner or later. Do you know why my master is called Grand Duke Valdrova? Ferda Resnova put his book down. Of course. Once an embodiment of darkness, the origin of evil that contributed to the birth of the Demon King, the Black Dragon Godwin. The one who ended that Black Dragon's life was Valdrova. Luri nodded at his knowledge. That's right. For that achievement, the Empire granted her the title of Grand Duke in her current territory. The most important task for Lord Valdrova right now is monster subjugation. Therefore, as the one who will become her husband, you must manage the territories and lords on the eastern front line in her stead. Simply put, my master will handle external affairs, and you'll handle internal ones. Ferda Risnova quickly drew a basic conclusion. So I'm going to become the rear support. A thought popped into his heart. She's already let me taste a bit of power. It seems she still can't trust me. Thinking it over and over, Ferda Risnova nodded. Fine, I'll go meet the lords. That was why he was present at the Ultimate Frontline Association. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I am the one who will soon become Grand Duke Valdrova's husband. Before we begin our formal discussion, how would you like me to treat you? This remark caused the smiles of those present to vanish. He's dominating right from the opening greeting. The moment he opens his mouth, the hierarchy will be established. Among them, only Ulvera Cancillus spoke up. We are lords residing under the Grand Duke's light. Naturally, we must respect the one who will become her husband. However, the lords gathered here have been loyal to the Empire since before you were born. So shouldn't the husband also show proper respect for that? Whispers started. That's right, exactly. Even so, he remained completely nonchalant. Is that all of your answers? Should I speak to you with respect or with a superior tone? Just answer that question. At that time, Ulvera Cancillus also felt scared. Of course, speaking to us with a superior tone is entirely reasonable. This remark completely aligned with his intentions. I see. That answer is useful. As you know, even if I become her husband, there will be very few things I directly change. Your territories remain in your hands, so just continue managing them as before, even if you rule benevolently or exploit them. Hearing this, an angry man slammed his fist on the table. Exploitation? Are you implying that we're sucking the blood of our own people? Ferda Risnova clicked his tongue inwardly. Oh my, that was a bit too harsh. Then he waved his hand in explanation. I didn't mean any harm, it was just a slip of the tongue. Unexpectedly, Ferda Risnova received a malicious remark in return. I can see why your family abandoned you. Thessalos Vanger jumped up, pointing right at his face. Cast aside by your own family, and now you're sniffing around trying to become a mage. You'd better show some respect to your elders. You First Circle fiancé, you only get to stand there thanks to your position as the Grand Duke's fiancé. What on earth gives you the right to act superior to a Fourth Circle mage like me? In response to that agitation, Ferda Risnova simply replied softly, The Fourth Circle. That level is pretty ordinary too. Just like that, it was still enough to wound Thessalos Vanger's pride. What did you just say? A Fourth Circle mage is treated with respect wherever they go. A mage's class system is decided entirely based on skill. Let's say it's ordinary, but a mere First Circle nobody dares to insult me. I'll teach you a lesson about manners. Before the man could make a move, he had already taken the initiative. Since that's the case, I have a suggestion you might actually like, as a chance to test the skills of someone who's only at the First Circle. How about you and I have a one-on-one duel? People quickly gathered around the arena. A duel between a First Circle mage and a Fourth Circle mage. Those who got word of this immediately rushed to judge. Isn't the outcome way too obvious? One of them felt a bit worried for Ferda Risnova. If he uses this opportunity to put him in his place, things will be much easier for us. I wonder if Thessalos will go easy on Ferda. Luri nearby heard everything, but she showed no reaction. Right there in the ring, Ferda Risnova and Thessalos Vanger faced each other. He was the first to speak up. What magic will you be using? Hearing that, the man was furious. Are you asking me to openly reveal my trump card during a duel? That's so disrespectful. Come to think of it, you must be feeling scared right now, aren't you? Go ahead and forfeit if you want. Right here and right now. A violent surge flared up around Thessalos Vanger. I will use Fourth Circle magic, Mana Burst. This piece of intelligence almost blew the stands apart. What? Isn't Mana Burst an immensely powerful spell meant for absolute destruction? If he gets hit by that, can he even survive? Facing such magic, Ferda maintained his composure. I see. Then I'll let you in on something too. The only magic I can use is just a magic missile. The man sneered upon learning his bottom card. A magic missile? Do you really think you can beat me with such a basic spell? Unexpectedly, Ferda casually remarked. I don't think I'll lose. Trust me, I know quite a bit. These words directly struck at Thessalos Vanger's pride. You insolent brat. The man summoned a giant magic circle in midair. With this move, I'll vaporize you without a trace. With just a quick glance, Ferda recognized the heavy, murderous intent. He's deliberately ramping up the firepower. Seeing him use magic driven by heightened emotions, he must also possess a red magic circle. He retaliated with his magic missile. Too bad. The crimson hue of it made Thessalos Vanger freeze up. What? Ferda stated his position with a cold voice. The match was decided from the start. As the missiles rushed toward him, the man could only grit his teeth and deploy a defensive magic shield. Thessalos Vanger went blank as the missiles swept past him. By the time he realized it, it was already too late. He wasn't aiming at me. He targeted the magic circle right before it was completed. The projectiles left cracks across the surface of the magic circle. Thessalos Vanger stood dumbfounded, glancing backward. He destroyed the magic circle. An explosion occurred that the man couldn't control. Is this really the caliber of a first circle mage? A technique to shatter magic circles? Even I can't pull that off. The battle ended very quickly, leaving Thessalos Vanger with bright red palms. He knelt on the ground powerlessly, clutching them and enduring the pain. Thessalos Vanger's breathing was visibly thrown off. I can't believe I lost. At that moment, Ferda walked up right in front of him. Do you concede defeat? Thessalos Vanger's self-esteem had suffered a deeply profound blow. His tears welled up uncontrollably. I want to become stronger. In the end, Thessalos Vanger managed to speak up. I concede. A twisted thought took root in his mind. If I can become stronger, I'll do anything. Very quickly, this incident became the talk of the town. Thessalos, a fourth circle mage lost to a first circle mage. Even seeing it with my own eyes, I just can't believe it. Someone glanced over at Luri. Could a half-dragon have secretly interfered? She crossed her arms and exposed them right away. If you still can't believe it even after seeing it with your own eyes, you might as well gouge out those useless eyes of yours. Down in the arena, Thessalos Vanger smiled and shook the man's hand. I never imagined I'd meet someone with such outstanding talent. The world is truly vast. He politely explained to him. Your magic was exceptional too. If you had struck a fraction faster, I might have been in real danger. Seeing the prowess of the Eastern Front like this gives me great peace of mind. Thessalos Vanger let out a relaxed laugh. To be recognized by you, it seems being transferred away from the capital isn't so bad after all. It's an honor to meet you. But something else caught Ferda's attention. Did you just say you were transferred from the capital? What's your name? The man smiled and reintroduced himself. My name is Thessalos Vulture. He looked up at the sky with a slightly different attitude. Thessalos Vulture? All right, now I remember. The man startled at those words. You know me. Ferda looked at Thessalos Vulture with eyes full of murderous intent. Very well, as a matter of fact. You used to be my benefactor. The man froze for a second upon hearing that. What? When on earth did we meet? And so he directly sent Thessalos Vulture a distance away, releasing a magic missile. Red blood splattered everywhere from the center of the man's forehead. The lords present couldn't help but be struck with shock. And then Thessalos Vulture's body grew cold, lying right in the middle of the arena. Ferda muttered to himself, That's why I couldn't let you keep living. If I let you live, you'd only bring despair to my fiancé. Thessalos Vulture's passing left everyone frozen in silent shock. And just like that, an unprecedented precedent was set. Ferda had killed a noble. The surrounding lords looked at him with fearful and disgusted eyes. Unwittingly, they all shared the same thought. The match was over, but he killed him before anyone could stop him. This is clearly the act of murdering a noble. Even so, a bigger question remained. But who on earth is going to stand up against him? Seeing the lord's attitude, Ferda Risnova turned to question them. Why are all of you so tense? Is it because of Thessalos? Don't bother worrying about him. He was a man who deserved to die. If anything, letting him live would only bring more trouble to the Grand Duke. Ulvera Concilius spoke up tremblingly. Trouble the Grand Duke? That guy Thessalos, he tried to explain. But sir, this isn't the first time you've met us lords and all. So what on earth does Thessalos' death have to do with troubling the Grand Duke? Thus Ferda Risnova spoke in Valdrova's name. Grand Duke Valdrova wishes for humanity to find happiness. A benevolent female Grand Duke fighting for humanity inside the body of a dragon. Thessalos went against her wishes. Ulvera Concilius momentarily didn't know how to respond. That will happen in the distant future, so it's probably hard for you all to understand. Ulvera Concilius turned several shades paler. What? But his heart was filled with criticism. How ridiculous. Is he saying he killed a lord over something that hasn't even happened yet? He's completely out of his mind. Before leaving, Ferda Risnova didn't drop his murderous demeanor. Don't worry, I won't care even a tiny bit about what the rest of you do. That afternoon, his carriage sped rapidly along the edge of the forest. At one point, it even hit a bump. Ferda Risnova sat inside the carriage, continuously clutching his head. His complexion was no longer fresh either. My head is spinning. I never expected to run into Thessalos Vulture here. Just using that magic missile drained all my mana dry. On top of that, this swaying carriage makes me even more carsick. I miss mana-powered vehicles so much, even though they haven't been invented yet. In contrast to his exhaustion was Luri's bright expression. That was truly impressive. Dealing with one of the master's most outstanding loyal retainers on your very first meeting. This is bound to become a major obstacle for the engagement. He looked somewhat puzzled. An outstanding loyal retainer. Ferda Risnova seriously asked back. You couldn't possibly be talking about Thessalos, right? To his surprise, she nodded in affirmation. That's right. Believe it or not, he was one of the few lords loyal to the Grand Duke. However, he couldn't comprehend it at all. This is getting really troublesome. Your word is my command. Tell me, was he upright? Mentioning this, Luri gave a clear explanation. Upright to a moderate degree and corrupt to a moderate degree. In this remote eastern frontier, that mediocre level is already considered the best. The other lords only care about lining their own pockets, even while they're on the verge of life and death on the front lines. He cursed them inwardly. These lords are truly parasites harming the people. Speaking of which, he rested his arm against the window frame. Nevertheless, the engagement ceremony will still proceed as planned, because my reason for killing Thessalos was entirely justified. Ferda half-closed his eyes to watch Luri's reaction, then glanced over at her side pouch. If I remember correctly, Thessalos must be committing a monstrous crime right at this moment. Very soon, Ferda arrived at his destination. Welcome to the Vulture family castle. It is an honor to host guests from the Grand Duke's castle. It's a shame my master is currently away. Before the butler could finish speaking, he was informed. He's dead, so just ignore it. The butler jolted with a start. What? Without missing a beat, Ferda tossed the cloth pouch to the butler. Take this. The butler accepted it vaguely. What is this? Before the butler could figure it out, Luri carefully instructed. Hang it somewhere in plain sight at the castle gates. The butler nodded out of sheer habit. Yes, what on earth is this? But when a lock of Thessalos Vulture's hair poked out, the butler went dead silent. Master! His scream echoed throughout the Vulture family castle. Ferda walked casually straight into Thessalos' bedroom. It feels like we're burglarizing an empty house. Luri rambled on incessantly in his ear. Since you publicly hung the head of a loyal retainer for everyone to see, you'd better find proof showing he was a wicked lord. Ferda rummaged through the room without stopping. Even if you say that, didn't you lend a hand yourself? You even personally handled Thessalos' head. Hearing that, her face darkened. I was just considering calling off the engagement. Should I go retrieve that head? He brushed off Luri's attitude. Found it. There's a secret door under this bed. Ferda brushed away the layer of dust on top. There must be some mechanism around here to open the hatch. She spoke up with a demand while he was fumbling around. Step aside. Luri cupped her hand into a fist and struck straight ahead. The force unleashed was enough to shatter Thessalos' bed frame. Ferda was quite speechless at her recklessness. It's open, let's head inside. The deep, recessed stairs of the basement gradually came into view. Luri had to cover her nose due to the thick, pungent scent. With a place like this here, no wonder the stench of blood wafts up from underground. A secret laboratory with the intertwined corpses of humans and monsters. The traces of blaspheming life and studying monsters clearly belonged to cultists of the demon, those who craved demonic power and were ready to discard their humanity. And naturally, among them, Thessalos Vulture was a necromancer dark mage. Checking around, she couldn't help exclaiming, "This corpse is a soldier from this territory. It looks like he stitched the internal organs of a dead soldier together with those of a monster." The deeper she looked, the more driven mad Luri became. This sick freak has a death wish. Humans really aren't trustworthy. If he's a demon cultist, that crime is more than enough to cover up the sin of murdering a noble. Mentioning this, she suddenly realized, but how did you know this place was down here? But Ferda couldn't hear her at all as he was spacing out. Found it. What he was holding in his hand was Thessalos' unnamed masterpiece, the method of infinite mana cultivation. In his past life, Thessalos Vulture had handed this very thing to him. Ferda, do you know about this? Monsters continuously produce mana. However, it's a muddy, low-quality kind of mana that can't be used for anything. But what if we could replicate a monster's mana production process and continuously filter out a pure source of mana? It would become an endless source of magical power. If I complete this, I can surpass the limit of the circles. Back then, Ferda had been extremely curious. An astonishing achievement. Thessalos, what are you going to do with that cultivation method? Stroking his ego, Thessalos Vulture didn't hesitate to explain. With the immortal monster army I've created, I'll crush the nobles who demoted and drove me to this dragon's territory. With this, soon enough, I might even aim for the realm of an archmage. Once the secret was revealed, the man had no more value. I see. Ferda threatened him. It will be very useful for my revenge, thanks a lot. Returning to the present, that memory felt like it had happened just yesterday. Ultimately, it fell into his hands once again. This infinite mana cultivation method had helped his past self reach the 8th circle faster than anyone else. If I study this, I'll be able to reach the 8th circle many times faster. But Luri beside him interrupted that train of thought. Seeing you drool over something like this, I guess you're just a human after all. The research is complete and the researcher is dead. So nobody will ever know even if you steal it. This is a chance to become stronger that any human would crave. Congratulations. The research is complete and the researcher is dead. So even if you steal it. Ferda cut her off the moment those words were repeated. No, destroy everything in this laboratory. Luri flipped through the research pages and broke into a sweat. Are you serious? You're supposed to be a mage anyway. Aren't you tempted at all by the knowledge left behind here? Deep in Ferda's eyes, there was a hint of sorrow. This research definitely possesses the potential to turn the magic world upside down, but what good is any of that? If I get charmed by the temptation of this powerful magic and end up troubling the Grand Duke, I'd better nip it in the bud right now. Following those words, his gaze grew resolute. Will you burn it down? Luri fell silent for a moment before replying. That's not a difficult request for me. Her blue flames began to scorch a corner of the research. And naturally, the entire room was engulfed shortly after. Every single spell bore the emotional imprint of the caster, and the caster's nature would be tainted by that magic. Because Thessalos hated the Empire, his magic was filled with hatred. Just like how this hateful dark magic had gnawed away at Thessalos. Thessalos also possessed a red circle, and his hatred and inferiority complex were just as intense as his own past self. Someone who shared the same anger and hatred. If I inherit his magic, I'll once again be consumed by emotions I can't bear. So I have to throw it away. His past self, the one who had forced himself to hate just to survive. At this point, Ferda managed a relieved smile. It really is burning fiercely. Luri looked at his expression with deep suspicion, an unpredictable weirdo and a bloodthirsty lunatic to boot. He's a human I really hate keeping around my master. But in the end, she had to accept it. Let's get out of this moldy place. It would be terribly rude if our bodies reeked of blood right before holding the engagement ceremony with my master. Hearing those words, he understood. So the time for the engagement ceremony has finally come. The day of the engagement ceremony finally arrived. Everything inside Grand Duke Valdrova's castle was thoroughly prepared. While the final rituals were being polished, Luri suddenly turned to look at Ferda. Have you finished writing your vows? Ferda smiled, holding up the paper in his hand. Of course, this engagement wouldn't follow traditional rituals. Instead, both parties would write their own vows for each other and read them before the altar. A deeply meaningful and immensely romantic ritual. Yet Luri didn't look happy at all. She looked around the room and sighed softly. Call it the Grand Duke's engagement, but the venue isn't even as good as a stable. Ferda just quietly looked at her without replying. He realized Luri didn't oppose the marriage at all. On the contrary, she just felt guilty that Valdrova couldn't have a ceremony worthy of her status. Thinking of that, Ferda just smiled faintly. She really cares a lot about Valdrova. Right at that moment, Luri caught his gaze. What is it? Don't wrinkle the formal wear. It took me a lot of effort to prepare it. Ferda sighed softly. Consider it her venting her frustrations on him. At least that was more comfortable than her keeping everything bottled up inside. After a few minutes of silence, Ferda suddenly remembered something. Since the assembly of the lords, how is the situation in the territory now? He cast his gaze around. Ever since arriving here, Ferda hadn't seen a single noble capable of managing the front lines. That left him rather worried. Luri nodded. Your assessment isn't wrong. Initially, the lords were given full authority to manage their territories, but gradually they only cared about hoarding wealth. As for the commoners, if they dared to resist, they would be suppressed by the military. If this keeps up, sooner or later a riot will break out. Ferda frowned slightly. Is it that serious? Then why didn't the Grand Duke intervene directly? If she just spoke up, wouldn't everything be resolved immediately? Luri looked at him for a moment before replying calmly. Then you'll understand why my master couldn't do that. Finished speaking, she walked up to the final door and stopped. Please take your position. The engagement ceremony was about to begin. Ferda sat down in his assigned spot. The exact moment he did, a terrifying wave of pressure instantly spilled out from behind the door. Just that aura alone made the atmosphere heavy enough to suffocate. Through the ajar door, Ferda caught a glimpse of Valdrova's gigantic body in her blood-dragon form. Even though he had confronted her in his past life, he still couldn't help feeling the pressure. This truly is the power of the Grand Duke. Standing beside him, Luri raised the ritual wine goblet and spoke in a solemn tone. Today, the mortal and the immortal become one. The bond connecting the two shall not be severed by time or destiny. The mortal shall overcome fear to step into the future. Finished speaking, she handed the cup of wine to Ferda. Without a moment's hesitation, he drained it in a single breath. The moment the wine slid down his throat, the terrifying pressure from the blood dragon instantly eased. Ferda could finally breathe normally. Luri continued the ritual. The immortal shall forsake the solitude of endless years. She poured another cup of wine and respectfully extended it toward the back of the door. A gigantic clawed hand slowly reached out. It was Valdrova. She tried to carefully receive the wine cup, but the cup slipped from her claws and fell straight onto the stone floor, shattering. The entire room plunged into silence. Luri just closed her eyes gently. Let's start over. A few minutes later, the ritual restarted from the beginning. Today, the mortal and the immortal. Ferda obediently drank another cup, while Valdrova dropped the second cup. Who knows how many times it repeated. Ferda looked at the wine cup in his hand and sighed. What time is this already? This is my first time drinking alcohol in this life, and I'm practically turning into an alcoholic. Every single time it was the same. As soon as it was Valdrova's turn, the tiny cup would slip from her giant claws, fall and shatter, and the ritual would have to start all over again from the beginning. Finally, even Luri couldn't stay calm anymore. She took a deep breath. Excuse my rudeness. Having said that, Luri opened the door and walked right inside. Ferda remained seated quietly outside, but just a few seconds later, a shout echoed through the entire mansion. Master, what on earth are you doing? Ferda was still sitting quietly outside the door, but he heard everything happening inside loud and clear. Master, what on earth are you doing? You were the one who insisted on marrying a human. Yet now that your fiancé is sitting right outside, you're hiding in here. Have you thought about how he's going to feel? The more Luri spoke, the more frustrated she became. At least go outside and greet your fiancé. Also, if you spill that cup of wine one more time, I'm genuinely going to get mad. Sitting outside the door, Ferda was completely dumbfounded. Should I pretend I didn't hear that? A moment later, the door opened. Luri stepped out looking as calm as if nothing had happened. She looked at Ferda. Did you hear everything? Ferda gave an awkward smile. I did. That roar was just as terrifying as a dragon's breath. Luri nodded slightly. That's for the best. If you want the ceremony to continue, this is the only way. Ferda was still full of surprise. But why does the Grand Duke not want to meet a human? Luri remained silent for a few seconds before answering. It's not that she doesn't want to, it's that the master is terrified of humans. Because of that, aside from when she goes out to hunt monsters, she almost never leaves her quarters. Ferda widened his eyes. Terrified of humans? The Grand Duke feared by the entire continent, Valdrova, turns out to have a weakness nobody could ever expect. Ferda couldn't help chuckling. So how are we supposed to continue the ritual? Right at that moment, a giant dragon hand slowly pushed the door open. Creech, the heavy door slowly swung wide open. For the first time, Valdrova actively stepped out of her room. In her blood dragon form, even though she had gathered all her courage to appear, she sat down quietly, not daring to utter a single word. As soon as he saw her, Ferda couldn't help being stunned. She even covered her face. Her massive form was covered from head to toe in heavy armor. If you didn't know beforehand, anyone would think she was heading out to a battlefield rather than attending her own engagement ceremony. Luri cleared her throat. Then let's start over. The engagement ceremony could finally continue. After everyone settled into their seats, Luri resumed the ritual as if nothing had happened. The mortal shall overcome fear. The immortal shall let go of the solitude of time. This time, everything finally went smoothly. When it came time to drink the covenant wine, Valdrova slowly raised her hand. She gently opened a corner of the armored mask concealing her face, just enough to take a sip of wine. The moment that face was revealed, Ferda completely froze in place. The dragon lady slowly lifted the wine bowl in front of her, then chugged it all down in one breath. After finishing, she seemed to even wear a faint smile. Only one thought remained in his head. Am I drunk, or did the fear of the blood dragon just vanish completely? The girl before his eyes was completely different from what he had imagined, neither fierce nor terrifying. On the contrary, she was so stunning that Ferda momentarily forgot how to breathe. Luri calmly spoke up. Next, the two of you will read your vows to each other. Ferda looked down at the paper in his hand and smiled faintly. The words written on it were originally vows from his past life, but after returning to the past, they were no longer enough to express his feelings. Taking a deep breath, Ferda slowly raised his voice. Perhaps you still don't truly understand me, but I understand you better than anyone else. I know you handed your heart over to me, and thanks to that heart, I've come to understand everything you've ever shouldered. I saw you being misunderstood, betrayed, and turned away by the entire world. Yet even so, you never once abandoned your responsibility. You still protected what you wanted to protect. Therefore, just like how you handed your heart to me back then, today it's my turn to hand my heart to you. My sovereign, the one I love, and my everything. Saying that, Ferda smiled gently. There's one more line. This one wasn't in the vow, but I truly feel honored to be engaged to someone as beautiful as you. Luri felt so cringed out she was trembling, but very quickly, Luri regained her calm expression. Next, please let the Grand Duke read her vows. However, Valdrova suddenly jumped straight to her feet. Without saying a word, she turned around and dashed straight back into her room, then slammed the door shut. Ferda looked blankly. Did I just say something wrong? The atmosphere fell silent for a few seconds before Luri unexpectedly smiled. Congratulations, my lord. The engagement ceremony is complete. Right at that moment from behind the door, Valdrova's timid voice echoed out. So, sorry. Can I stay in my room for about 3 days? Hearing this, Luri immediately burst into a radiant smile and walked inside. Just like my master. That counterattack just now was so flawless even I got faked out. Keeping the initiative over your fiancé like that is the right move. However, the maid really couldn't keep smiling after that. Luri's expression began to shift, as she dazedly muttered that this wasn't what she meant, right? Clearly, she had been looking forward to this engagement ceremony so much. Right in front of her, the Grand Duke was holding her head in utter embarrassment. Valdrova quietly admitted that she originally wanted to read the engagement vows herself, as a way to welcome her partner. However, when Luri asked why she didn't do it, Valdrova confessed that she lacked confidence. She slumped forward and said, I didn't have enough courage to look straight into his eyes and say those words. Those sharp eyes felt like they were piercing right through my soul. That gentle voice, just looking at him makes my mind go completely blank. Witnessing her master behave like this left even Luri speechless. Then she sighed. Master, I'm sorry for bringing this up on a happy day like today, but at times like this, you have to prepare your mindset for disappointment. While Valdrova was still flustered, Luri explained. Lord Ferda has now officially become your fiancé, so he will be managing the Eastern Territory in your stead. And humans tend to change once they gain power, just like the third prince from years ago. When Valdrova remained silent, Luri bowed her head. Forgive me for bringing up memories from over a decade ago, your greatness, but that's the best advice I can offer. However, Valdrova replied, No, I understand your worries. Mortals will eventually fade away. It's best to bury these stirring emotions. Meanwhile, after the engagement ceremony, Ferda sat alone in his room. Even up to this moment, everything still felt unreal. He was actually engaged to Valdrova. In his past life, hatred and anger had consumed him entirely to the point where he had never experienced emotions like these. But this time, everything was different. Ever since meeting her, he couldn't stop replaying those moments in his mind. His red magic circle had completely spun out of control, and he still couldn't understand the strange emotion driving it, although an out-of-control circle could eventually destroy the caster itself. Ferda knew that if controlled properly, it could become an opportunity for growth. He had already reached the peak once in his past life. Getting back there wouldn't be difficult. A circle required 2 things, mana and mental strength. As a first circle mage, his current mana capacity was still severely limited. However, his mind had once reached the level of a grand archmage. Leveraging that advantage, Ferda carefully controlled every single strand of violent mana without wasting a single drop. He compressed them layer by layer, successfully forming the second circle. In just 3 days, Ferda had advanced to the second circle, taking another step closer to Valdrova. Before long, Ferda finally ended his period of seclusion. Luri dropped her jaw in astonishment when she sensed his new power. He had reached the second circle in just 3 days. She had noticed his room locked the entire time and wondered if red circle mages typically progressed at such an unbelievable pace. Ferda simply explained, every mage develops at a different speed. Yet deep down, he contemplated the hidden side effects of the red circle. Each new circle demanded a stronger emotional stimulus, and the strongest emotion etched into the circle would gradually become part of the caster's personality. His own circle had awakened, fueled by overwhelming hatred. That was why even after finishing his revenge, he had continued seeking things to hate. As he continued walking, Luri led Ferda to the female master's office, where he would begin carrying out his duties. Even though he only served as the Grand Duke's representative, the room was fully prepared for him. Ferda immediately noticed one detail. Every single item was arranged with deep thoughtfulness. Even within the dragon's fortress, everything reflected Valdrova's care for her fiancé. Sitting at the desk, Ferda officially began his first duty as the Grand Duke's regent. He quickly realized Valdrova's territory had been heavily neglected due to the responsibilities she had to shoulder. However, after hanging Thessalos's head and exposing his crimes, The surrounding lords had become extremely cautious around him. With Luri's assistance, managing the territory became much easier. His first decision was to send letters to every lord he had met. Luri explained, "These letters will serve as your official first greeting in the capacity of the Grand Duke's representative." After taking office, Furdo officially notified the nobles that from now on he would take charge of the territory's internal affairs as regent. He requested anyone opposed to this decision to simply remain silent, believing that silence was a sign of mutual respect. With the noble situation stabilized, Furdo shifted his attention to another massive issue: monsters. Countless monsters continued ruining farmland simply by existing, while taking the lives of countless innocent people. Although Grand Duke Valdrova controlled the massive disaster-class monsters, even she couldn't wipe out every smaller monster spreading across the vast territory. To solve this problem, Furdo decided his top priority was recruiting capable individuals. When Luri asked if he already had anyone in mind, Furdo handed her a list containing a few names. Luri looked at the list and frowned. She grumbled, asking if he meant for them to go hunt down these candidates themselves, especially a scholar nobody had ever heard of. Now both of them set out for the City of Scholars, Escolaria, to find the first candidate. Furdo explained that it was natural for Luri not to recognize that scholar, because that man's talent had never been revealed to the world. Luri narrowed her eyes, asking if he had just written this letter on the spot. Furdo calmly reassured her that gathering this information had taken a very long time. But deep down, he recalled the truth. This list used to be his personal hit list. In his past life, he had investigated their achievements, searching for reasons to hate them. He tracked every single flaw, waiting for the perfect moment to use it against them. Looking back now, Furdo realized those obsessive thoughts were nothing more than paranoia generated by anger. Still, finding an unknown scholar in such a large city wouldn't be simple. While deciding their next step, Furdo and Luri sat next to a statue in the middle of the market. A nearby fruit vendor noticed them and loudly called out, "Hey, young master and cute miss over there. Want some sweets to shake off the fatigue? Even academy students love them." Hearing this, Furdo quickly approached and asked, "Do many graduated students usually come around here?" The vendor proudly explained that he had been selling goods here for quite a while and had seen countless graduates pass by. Furdo then asked about the scholar known by the nickname the Sloppy Scholar. Luri instantly frowned at the strange nickname, wondering why he would bring someone so unkempt back to the castle. The fruit vendor recognized the nickname, but he cleverly held out skewered, honey-glazed fruits, saying his business kept him busy, so his memory was a bit messy when it came to remembering faces. Clearly, he wanted Furdo to buy snacks in exchange for information. So Furdo asked, "How much?" The crafty vendor excitedly revealed, 5 copper coins for 3 skewers. Furdo took out his wallet intending to buy just one, but Luri quickly ordered all 3. Furdo looked at her in surprise. The vendor happily handed the honey fruit skewers to her, and Luri's eyes sparkled at the delicious treat before her. Meanwhile, Furdo remarked, "Surprising, I didn't take you for a sweets fan." However, she insisted, "This is just a bribe to make sure his information is accurate." As she happily enjoyed the sweet fruit with an unexpectedly childish expression, witnessing her innocent reaction caught Furdo completely off guard. He had assumed that, just like himself, Luri had buried her emotions long ago. But now he realized she could still show such cute and carefree expressions. When he continued watching her, Luri misunderstood that he wanted a skewer. She instinctively pulled them away before awkwardly handing one skewer to him. Furdo gently refused and told her to finish them, as the sky was growing dark and it was time to head back. At the Academy's graduation ceremony, the sloppy scholar known as Bernal Marquis was greeted by a group of men. Bernal immediately panicked, asking how they found him. The ringleader cheerfully patted his shoulder. "Since we're this close, of course I had to come congratulate you. Honestly, how did you even earn the nickname Sloppy? Anyway, congratulations on graduating. So now it's time to pay back your debt, right?" The surrounding men began tightening their fists. Bernal broke out in a cold sweat, managing only a weak, awkward smile. It seemed he owed a massive amount of debt. They dragged him back to his room and started smashing things, demanding to know when this bastard was going to pay up. Pushed into a corner, Bernal begged for a little more time, but that infuriated the man. He had waited years for this guy to graduate, and now he was asking for more time. Then he pinched his nose upon spotting a disgusting creature corpse on Bernal's desk. With disgust, he asked what that animal carcass was. Bernal excitedly explained, "That's not an animal, it's a monster. My research is about turning worthless monster carcasses into magic stones and energy sources." Extracting the materials is difficult, but if successful, it'll be a massive breakthrough for the entire continent. However, the man snorted. Spare me the excuses. I waited because you said you were doing breakthrough research, but is there anything in here that makes money right now? Bernal lowered his head, timidly admitting that there were too many variables, so it probably couldn't make money immediately. The man then raised his cigar. You really are a researcher who knows nothing about the real world. Drop this research, and I'll give you a chance to pay off your debt. This made Bernal curious, so the guy pulled out a pocket knife. I hear weapon research makes money anywhere. Use that smart brain of yours to create something profitable. Weren't you the top student of your freshman class? Hearing that suggestion, Bernal anxiously tried to dodge it, saying he already had another research direction that could help them make money. But the man coldly threw his knife, narrowly missing Bernal's vital spot. He said coldly, I tried to be nice, but you keep pushing your luck. Are you really in a position to be picky like that? Bernal trembled in fear, but he mustered his courage and shouted, I absolutely cannot research weapons. Please let me do something else. However, right after that, the man stomped Bernal's head into the ground, saying reasoning with this scholar was a waste of time. Then the bunch started beating him black and blue, furious that he dared reject the offer after borrowing so much money. The ringleader yelled at him to just drop dead, because the creditors couldn't afford to lose even a single coin. Meanwhile, Bernal clutched his head and begged them not to hit his face. He miserably wondered if he was going to die right here and now. However, a sharp voice ordered them to stop. Bernal raised his head in surprise. Ferda walked in elegantly alongside his maid. I heard the noise from outside. Looks like I came to the right place. I have business with this man as well. The men stopped beating Bernal. The ringleader turned to Ferda. You look like some rich kid from out of town. Did this bastard borrow money from you too? Ferda simply answered no. The guy told him to wait his turn because he was going to beat Bernal just enough so he could still talk. However, Ferda replied that would be a problem. What he needed wasn't Bernal's mouth, but his brain. Therefore, Ferda offered to pay off the debt in his place. This made the ringleader curious as he asked if that included interest. It came out to a hefty sum, 72 gold coins, and asked if he actually had that kind of money. Without wasting time, Lurie slammed a pouch of gold coins onto the table. The men were shocked by the absurdly large sum of money right before their eyes. The ringleader turned to Bernal and called him a lucky bastard for having such a rich backer. Then he reached for the gold coins, saying the debt was cleared. However, Lurie firmly grabbed his wrist, catching him off guard. Ferda said coldly that the deal wasn't over yet and asked, where does he think he's putting his hands? The man asked what that meant and whether they were going back on their word. Ferda explained, I made it clear I wanted his brain, but after getting beaten up this badly, I doubt it still functions properly. If you break the merchandise, shouldn't you compensate for it? Hearing Ferda call Bernal merchandise, the guy asked, what kind of logic is that? Lurie gripped his wrist tighter. The man groaned, asking how such a tiny girl could have so much strength. That remark infuriated Lurie, and she squeezed even harder, making him scream in pain. After finishing, Lurie wiped her hands. Ferda told her he would leave things to her. Lurie then unleashed her dragon's aura, forcing the men to collapse to their knees. The ringleader had no idea what was happening. He couldn't move his body at all. This didn't feel like magic. So what was this crushing pressure? It seemed they had no idea Lurie was a dragon. Ferda walked up to the downed ringleader and said sternly, you have two choices. Compensate for beating Bernal or take the exact beating you inflicted on him. Of course, since creditors can't lose even a single coin, you'll choose the second option without hesitation, right? Therefore, all of you will receive a proper beating to pay off the debt. Lurie readied her fists to treat them to a few punches, and their screams echoed through the building as the beating began. After teaching them a thorough lesson, Lurie elegantly wiped her hands while the battered men scurried away. It looked like they had been paid just to take a beating. Now that it was over, Bernal thanked them for saving him and said he didn't know how to repay them. He introduced himself as Bernal Marquis, the sloppy scholar. Adjusting his broken glasses, he asked for their names. Our protagonist introduced himself. I am Ferda Valdrova. This shocked Bernal, as he quickly bowed an apology for failing to recognize the Grand Duke's husband. Ferda simply said, it's understandable if you didn't know, so don't worry about it. I came because I saw your research. Bernal asked in surprise if he was genuinely interested in his research. Ferda affirmed, I heard you're researching ways to utilize monster carcasses. The far eastern frontline has an endless supply of monsters. If you come to Valdrova Castle, I will unconditionally support your research. I'll provide all the materials, funding, and facilities you need. Hearing all those perks, Bernal beamed with excitement that his dream was about to come true. Meanwhile, seeing Bernal's exaggerated reaction, Luri asked if this guy was even in his right mind. Ferda then revealed what Bernal had to give in return. He had to produce weapons through his research. This instantly wiped the excitement off Bernal's face, as it sounded almost identical to the offer the creditors had made. Bernal anxiously replied, "If that's the condition, I can't accept. Weapons take human lives and destroy peace. I want this land to remain peaceful." Hearing that, Ferda said, "I see you value peace. However, the monsters you use in your research. Do you have any idea how many people a single monster kills at the far eastern frontline?" Bernal couldn't answer. Ferda explained, "Every 3 days, the Grand Duke personally heads out to the frontline where giant monsters gather. They are monsters capable of wiping out a city like Ascleia in the blink of an eye. And every single time, the Grand Duke puts her life on the line in those frontline battles. People who know nothing about that reality just stand atop her sacrifice and enjoy peace as if nothing is wrong. That's why I need someone who can create weapons to help take down those monsters. Only then can I ease her burden. That is precisely why I wanted to hire you, the one everyone mocks, as our head of research." Bernal lit up with excitement upon seeing the appointment letter Ferda was holding. Yet, he still hesitated about crafting weapons with his own hands. Ferda thought to himself, Bernal Marquis, the sloppy scholar, the scholar who will one day usher in the era of Magitech engineering. In the future, I know, he becomes the one willing to wage war to protect peace.